Hello, everybody! Once again, we 30 only today and tomorrow is the days left for Inktober 2019. Wow, guys, I really can't believe that I've made it all this way with only using a pen. Only using pen ink, not using just one pen. Whereas you've probably seen, I've used quite a few different pens to create different creations every single day of this month of Inktober, or as people know it as October. Yes, that's day 30. Only 2 more days, and I am going to show you, or so far, what we've got to, because I've got a good picture and I've got a good audiobook to listen to. Again, guys, if you have enjoyed the audiobooks that we've been listening to so far, then definitely go and check those out in the playlists. There are loads, and I mean, there's at least 29 pictures for Inktober up ready for you guys to go and check out, and audiobooks for you to listen to. And if you want to learn how I draw everything, just watch along and I'll show you. But anyway, today, day 30. But first, before I do, as the routine seems to be, and we're on day 30, I'm going to show you quickly what I've done so far. We've got day 1 was Ring. Day 2 was Mindless, and I am going to be going back into VR at the end or the beginning of next month. I'm sort of, because of the theme of this month, sort of set me off. I think, guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do I'm going to try my very hardest to do a month of VR artwork. If you do want to want me to do that, and I really need your to let me know, just leave a like on the video today, or let me know in the comment section either at the end of the video or come over to Instagram. Otherwise, you can leave a comment in today's video because we are live if you are watching. That was day 2, which was Mindless. Day 3 was Bait. Day 4 is Freeze. And if you know the reference, then let me know in the comment section. And then we got Build. I do apologize last night. Once again, the Xbox turned itself off for this one. I did start doing the Halloween special. So you got a first part of Halloween special to cure the zombie villagers. We're getting all the resources. This is my Minecraft world. This is my sleep station. That's my Tower of Flight, which we are up to this point here, which I need to build more to get all the way to build height, which we are going to do. Once we've done that, guys, I won't end the series, but I'll just say we're going to a new land, because that is the aim of the Tower of Flight, to go to a new land and start building. Anyway, that there is day 4. That was day 5. Day 6 was Husky. We had a bit of confusion on that one, but hey, we did it. More confusion on day 7. I thought the word was enhanced, and it was enchanted. And unfortunately, you can't watch that one still because it is blocked, because I was listening to Blade Runner. Then we go into, that was day 7. Then we go to day 8, which was Frail. And day 9, which is one of my favorite pictures that I drew. And it's actually on my phone. If you guys want this on your phone, I will be digitizing this at some point, hopefully before or just after Christmas. I'll get my CPU for the computer, so the graphics card, so I can start using my digital app again for drawing. Day 10, we relax back a little bit, and if you know that pattern, it's over on Instagram. No, it's over on you. No, it's not. We're on YouTube. It's over on Netflix. And day 11 was Snow. We did the Abominable Snowman. We listened to a really lovely story in that one. And then we listened to a really good story for Dragon, which was day 12. And then we got to day 13, where the word was Ash. And then we get to day 14, which was not Maleficent, it was Ash. But I did a scene from, not Ash, it was from Overgrown, which I did a scene from. Then we get to the word legend, and I am a legend. Or I felt like one once I finished doing this. I put a lot of time and a lot of effort into this one. Only an hour, I think, hour and a half maybe. But that is the cover of the I Am Legend film. And then we get into another film cover, which for day 16, where the word was wild, and that's where the wild things are. And then the word ornament comes up on for day 17. And instead of doing a Christmas ornament, again, it's too early, I picked something off my shelf. And then again, we got onto a Friday, and I started to chill back a bit. Want to do something a bit more cartoony. So I drew the Beano, or Dennis the Menace, as the word was Misfit. And keeping on the theme of a sling, because the word was sling, we did a picture here, which was sort of, I wanted to go Sherwood Forest, but I didn't want to sort of say it was just that because the word was sling. We drew a sling and he's practicing his shots. Then we get to the word tread, and we're doing treads in the sand with my two favorite beings or people. I still call my dog a person. She barks. She may talk up in the stream today. She does occasionally. Anyway, the word tread, and I've put 3 different kinds of tread here: my dog, myself, and my son. And then we get to day 21. Getting closer into the end of the month now, and the word was treasure. If you can tell me what the scene is here, we've got a treasure for the leprechaun, but what's the other imp doing? Then we get to one of my favorite drawings again, because we're getting back into Marvel, and you know I'm a big Marvel fan. Who isn't these days? And this was Ghost Rider. If you don't know who Ghost Rider is, there was an informational stories in the background to listen to what he gets up to in other stories, and that was day 22 for Ghost. And then we get to Ancient, which is day 23, and the number I do not like at all for 23, because if you hear the word, it goes literally, you see it everywhere. It's an anomaly word, but that's Nosferatu, as he is an ancient and first vampire. Then we get into the open heart competition, which was available for you guys to leave a like on the videos there, and go over to Instagram. That's over now, but this was day 1 of that, and day 24 of October, which was dizzy, and that's a doctor putting me to sleep. In this picture, I also tell you about my story of having a heart operation, open heart surgery, as the open heart thing, but open heart surgery to have my heart completely bypassed with 3 different ways. I had my heart as a kid, as a 13-year-old. I had my heart replaced, not my heart replaced, but pieces of my heart replaced with a piece of pig, which, if you carry on, well, you'll get to see what actually turned into me. But this is an actual true story. This was just a theme I went along with because it was Open Heart 2020. Yes, if you want to hear that story, then check it out. Day 25 was Tasty. And the doctor here, again, keeping on theme, the doctor here, he's giving his people, his friends, time to disembowel me and take me apart, because they've got the pig off in the corner there, getting to stuff me inside and turn me to a new creation. And the doctor creates something much better. Yes, much better. We got a little bit dark, didn't we, piggies? And then we get, that was day 26. Day 27 it was Coat. Will you stop moving, camera? Was Coat, and that's little Riding Hood wearing her red coat. And a scene from there. And then we keep with the sort of red and riding and go over to Red Dead Redemption for day 28. And the word was ride. And day 29, which was yesterday, and the word was injured. And again, it's a bit controversial to draw this at the moment because of what happened to the Spider-Man franchise after actually this happened in the films, not the comics. In the comics, it was actually a real world-standing comic of its time, because they actually killed off one of the characters, and she never came back until the reboot happened. And they created Gwen Spider, or whatever she's called, Ghost Spider. But today is day 30. I'm going to make sure this camera's not going to fall over. But yeah, day 30, and the word today is catch. I am going to be doing a scene from one of my favorite cartoons from a kid, being a kid, and that cartoon was Roadrunner. If you've seen the thumbnail there, we're going to be drawing some Roadrunner with this pen here, which is my Uniball 7.0. I really need to get some more sort of different thickness, but maybe we'll do that next October for next year. But anyway, I want to do some VR next time, but that's next month, because we're still in this month. Got 2 more days. I'm going to play a playlist in the background. We're going to be listening to The Wind in the Willows, because I couldn't find anything to do with running, but I could find stuff to do with the word catch, and that is the word today. but I wanted to listen to the Wind in the Willows for about a week now, and I want to listen to it for you guys as well. So we're going to be listening to that, Wind in the Willows, if you do like it. Otherwise, enjoy. Leave some comments, and don't forget to leave your likes if you do.
These recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org.
LibriVox is actually really good.
This
Some of them
reading
are
is by
crap,
Mark
but
Smith
it depends
Simpson
on
of
what they
South
do.
Carolina. The book is The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. Chapter 1. The Riverbank. The mole had been working very hard all the morning, spring cleaning his little home.
Okay, so that's the lights
First
turned
with
on.
brooms, then with dusters, then on ladders and steps and chairs, with a brush and a pail of whitewash, till he had dust in his throat and eyes, and splashes of whitewash all over his black fur. And
Again, guys, the word is catch, and I'm going to be doing a scene from The Roadrunner, the cartoon, Warner Brothers cartoon, many moons ago now. I don't know if it's even running anymore, but if it is, let me know.
With its spirit of divine discontent and longing. It was small wonder then that he suddenly flung down his brush on the floor, said "bother" and "old blow," and also "hang spring cleaning." He bolted out of the house without even waiting to put on his coat. Something up above was calling him imperiously, and he made for the steep little tunnel which answered in his case to the gravelled carriage drive owned by animals whose residences are nearer to the sun and air. So he scraped and scratched and scrabbled and scrooged, and then he scrooged again, and scrabbled and scratched and scraped, working busily with his little paws and muttering to himself, up we go, till at last, up, his snout came out into the sunlight, and he found himself rolling in the warm grass of a great meadow. This is fine, he said to himself. This is better than whitewashing.
You can't even see what I'm doing here.
The sunshine struck hot on his fur, soft breezes caressed his heated brow, and after the seclusion of the cellarage he had lived in so long, the carol of happy birds fell on his dulled hearing almost like a shout. Jumping off all his four legs at once, in the joy of living, the delight of spring without its cleaning, he pursued his way across the meadow till he reached the hedge on the farther side. "Hold up," said an elderly rabbit at the gap. "Sixpence for the privilege of passing by the private road." He was bowled over in an instant by the impatient and contemptuous mole, who trotted along the side of the hedge, chaffing the other rabbits as they peeped hurriedly from their holes to see what the row was about. Onion sauce, he remarked jeeringly, and was gone before they could think of a thoroughly satisfactory reply. Then they all started grumbling at each other. "How stupid you are! Why didn't you tell him?" "Well, why didn't you say? You might have reminded him," and so on, in the usual way. But of course it was then much too late, as is always the case. It all seemed too good to be true. Hither and thither through the meadows he rambled busily, along the hedgerows, across the copses, finding everywhere birds building, flowers budding, leaves thrusting, everything happy and progressive and occupied.
Yes, this is how I used to draw feet
an
running.
uneasy conscience pricking him and whispering, "Whitewash."
Like this.
He somehow could only feel how jolly it was to be the only idle dog among all these busy citizens. After all, the best part of a holiday is perhaps not so much to be resting yourself as to see all the other fellows busy working. He thought his happiness was complete when, as he meandered aimlessly along, suddenly he stood by the edge of a full-fed river. Never in his life had he seen a river before. This sleek, sinuous, full-bodied animal, chasing and chuckling, gripping things with a gurgle and leaving them with a laugh, to fling itself on fresh playmates that shook themselves free and were caught and held again. All was a shake and a shiver, glints and gleams and sparkles, rustle and swirl, chatter and bubble. The mole was bewitched, entranced, fascinated. By the side of the river he trotted as one trots, when very small, by the side a man who holds one spellbound by exciting stories. And when tired at last, he sat on the bank, while the river still chattered on to him, a babbling procession of the best stories in the world, sent from the heart of the earth to be told at last to the insatiable sea. As he sat on the grass and looked across the river, a dark hole in the bank opposite, just above the water's edge, caught his eye, and dreamily he fell to considering what a nice snug dwelling place it would make for an animal with few wants and fond of a bijou riverside residence, above flood level and remote from noise and dust. As he gazed, something bright and small seemed to twinkle down in the heart of it, vanished, then twinkled once more like a tiny star. But it could hardly be a star in such an unlikely situation. It was too glittering and small for a glowworm. Then, as he looked, it winked at him, and so declared itself to be an eye, and a small face began gradually to grow up around it, like a frame around a picture. A brown little face with whiskers, a grave round face with the same twinkle in its eye that had first attracted his notice, small neat ears and thick silky hair. It was the water rat. Then the two animals stood and regarded each other cautiously. "Hello, Mole," said the water rat. "Hello, rat," said the mole. "Would you like to come over?" inquired the rat presently. "Oh, it's all very well to talk," said the mole rather pettishly, he being new to a river and riverside life and its ways. The rat said nothing, but stooped and unfastened a rope and hauled on it, then lightly stepped into a little boat which the mole had not observed. It was painted blue outside and white within, and was just the size for two animals. And the mole's whole heart went out to it at once, even though he did not yet fully understand its uses. The rat sculled smartly across and made fast. Then he held up his forepaw as the mole stepped gingerly down. "Lean on that," he said. "Now then, step lively." And the mole, to his surprise and rapture, found himself actually seated in the stern of a real boat. "This has been a wonderful day," said he,
As it's coming
as
up
the rat
to
shoved
bonfire
off and
night,
took to the
or
sculls
as we
again.
call it, Guy
"Do you
Fawkes
know,
night,
I've never been in a boat before in
the
all my
legend
life."
that was
"What?"
Guy
cried the
Fawkes.
rat.
If you know about it, I'll probably make a little video out of it, but that won't be till the 5th of November.
What have you been doing then?
But this is a little bit something to do with it, if you get
so
my meaning,
nice
as
all that.
Wily
As the mole
Coyote is
shyly,
resting
he was quite
himself
prepared to
over
believe it,
a
as he
firework
back in
to
the seat
catch
and surveyed the cushions, the oars, the rowlocks, and
the
all the fascinating
Roadrunner.
fittings, and felt the boat sway lightly under him. "Nice. It's the only thing," said the water rat solemnly, as he leant forward for a stroke. "Believe me, my young friend, there is nothing, absolute nothing, half so much worth as simply messing about in boats. Simply messing," he went on dreamily, "messing about in boats. Messing." "Look out, rat!" cried the mole suddenly. It was too late. The boat struck the bank full tilt. The dreamer, the joyous oarsman, lay on his back at the bottom of the boat, his heels in the air. "About in boats, or with boats," the rat went on composedly, picking himself up with a pleasant laugh. "In or out of 'em, it doesn't matter. Nothing seems really to matter. That's the charm of it. Whether you get away, or whether you don't. Whether you arrive at your destination, or whether you reach somewhere else, or whether you never get anywhere at all. You're always busy, and you never do anything in particular. And when you've done it, there's always something else to do. And you can do it if you like, but you'd much better not. Look here, if you've really nothing else on hand this morning, supposing we drop down the river together and have a long day of it." The mole waggled his toes from sheer happiness, spread his chest with a sigh of full contentment, and leaned back blissfully into the soft cushions. What a day I'm having, he said. Let's start at once. Hold hard a minute then, said the rat. He looped the painter through a ring in his landing stage, climbed up into his hole above, and after a short interval appeared staggering under a fat wicker luncheon basket. Shove that under your feet, he observed to the mole as he passed it down into the boat. Then he untied the painter and took the sculls again. What's inside it? Asked the mole, wriggling with curiosity. There's cold chicken inside it, replied the rat briefly. Cold tongue, cold ham, cold beef, pickled gherkins, salad, French rolls, crust sandwiches, spotted meat, ginger beer, lemonade, soda water. Oh, stop, stop, cried the mole in ecstasies. This is too much. Do you really think so? Inquired the rat seriously. It's only what I always take on these little excursions, and the other animals are always telling me that I'm a mean beast and cut it very fine. The mole never heard a word he was saying. Absorbed in the new life he was entering upon, intoxicated with the sparkle, the ripple, the scents and sounds and the sunlight, he trailed a paw in the water and dreamed long waking dreams. The water rat, like the good little fellow he was, sculled steadily on and forbore to disturb him. I like your clothes awfully, old chap, he remarked after some half an hour or so had passed. I'm going to get a black velvet smoking suit myself some day, as soon as I can afford it. Oh, I beg your pardon, said the mole, pulling himself together with an effort. You must think me very rude, but this is all so new to me. So this is a river. The river, corrected the rat. And you really live by the river? What a jolly life. By it, and with it, and on it, and in it, said the rat. It's brother and sister to me, and aunts and company, and food and drink, and, naturally, washing. It's my world, and I don't want any other. What it hasn't got is not worth having, and what it doesn't know is not worth knowing. Lord, the times we've had together, whether in winter or summer, spring or autumn, it's always got its fun and its excitements. When the floods are on in February and my cellars and basement are brimming with drink that's no good to me, and the brown water runs by my best bedroom window, or again when it all drops away and shows patches of mud that smells like plum cake, and the rushes and weed clog the channels, and I can potter about dry shod over most of the bed of it and find fresh food to eat, and things careless people have dropped out of boats. But isn't it a bit dull at times? The mole ventured to ask. Just you and the river, and no one else to pass a word with? No one else to... Oh, well, I mustn't be too hard on you, said the rat with forbearance. You're new to it, and of course you don't know. The bank is so crowded nowadays that many people are moving away altogether. Oh no, it isn't what it used to be at all. Otters, kingfishers, dab chicks, moorhens, all of them about all day long, and always wanting you to do something, as if a fellow had no business of his own to attend to. What lies over there? Asked the mole, waving a paw towards a background of woodland that darkly framed the water meadows on one side of the river. That? Oh, that's just the wildwood, said the rat shortly. We don't go there very much, we riverbankers. Aren't they very nice people in there? Said the mole, a trifle nervously. Well, replied the rat, let me see. The squirrels are all right, and the rabbits, some of them, but rabbits are a mixed lot. And then there's Badger, of course. He lives right in the heart of it. Wouldn't live anywhere else either, if it paid him to do it. Dear old Badger. Nobody interferes with him. They better not, he added significantly. Why? Who should interfere with him? Asked the mole. Well, of course, there are others, explained the rat in a hesitating sort of way. Weasels and stoats and foxes and so on. They're all right in a way. I'm very good friends with them. Pass the time of day when we meet and all that. But they break out sometimes. There's no denying it. And then, well, you can't really trust them, and that's the fact. The mole knew well that it was quite against animal etiquette to dwell on possible trouble ahead, or even to allude to it, so he dropped the subject. And beyond the wild wood again? He asked, where it's all blue and dim, and one sees what may be hills, or perhaps they mayn't, and something like the smoke of towns, or is that only cloud drift? Beyond the wild wood comes the wide world, said the rat, and that's something that doesn't matter, either to you or me. I've never been there, and I'm never going, nor you either, if you've got any sense at all. Don't ever refer to it again, please. Now then, here's our backwater at last, where we're going to lunch. Leaving the main street, they now passed into what seemed at first sight like a little landlocked lake. Green turf sloped down to either edge. Brown, snaky tree roots gleamed below the surface of the quiet water, while ahead of them the silvery shoulder and foamy tumble of a weir, arm in arm with a restless dripping mill wheel that held up in its turn a gray gabled mill house, filled the air with a soothing murmur of sound, dull and smothery, yet with little clear voices speaking up cheerfully out of it at intervals. It was so very beautiful that the mole could only hold up both forepaws and gasp, "Oh my! Oh my! Oh my!" The rat brought the boat alongside the bank, made her fast, helped the still awkward mole safely ashore, and swung out the luncheon basket. The mole begged as a favor to be allowed to unpack it all by himself, and the rat was very pleased to indulge him, and to sprawl at full length on the grass and rest, while his excited friend shook out the tablecloth and spread it, took out all the mysterious packets one by one, and arranged their contents in due order, still gasping, "Oh my! Oh my!" at each fresh revelation. When all was ready, the rat said, "Now pitch in, old fellow." And the mole was indeed very glad to obey, for he'd started his spring cleaning at a very early hour that morning, as people will do, and had not paused for bite or sup. And he had been through a very great deal since that distant time which now seemed so many days ago. "What are you looking at?" said the rat presently, when the edge of their hunger was somewhat dulled, and the mole's eyes were able to wander off the tablecloth a little. "I am looking," said the mole, "at a streak of bubbles that I see traveling along the surface of the water. That's the thing that strikes me as funny." "Bubbles? Oh!" said the rat, and chirruped cheerily in an inviting sort of way. A broad glistening muzzle showed itself above the edge of the bank, and the otter hauled himself out and shook the water from his coat. "Greedy beggars," he observed, making for the provender. "Why didn't you invite me, Ratty?" "This was an impromptu affair," explained the rat. "By the way, my friend Mr. Mole." "Friend, I'm sure," said the otter, and the two animals were friends forthwith. "Such a rumpus everywhere," continued the otter. "All the world seems out on the river today. I came up this backwater to try and get a moment's peace, and then stumble upon you fellows. At least, I beg pardon, I don't exactly mean that, you know." There was a rustle behind them, proceeding from a hedge wherein last year's leaves still clung thick, and a stripy head with high shoulders behind it peered forth on them. "Come on, old badger!" shouted the rat. The badger trotted forward a pace or two, then grunted, "Company," and turned his back and disappeared from view. "It's just the sort of fellow he is," observed the disappointed rat. "Simply hates society. Now we shan't see any more of him today. Well, tell us, who's out on the river?" "Toad's out, for one," replied the otter. In his brand new wager boat. New dogs, new everything. The two animals looked at each other and laughed. Once it was nothing but sailing, said the rat. Then he tired of that and took to punting. Nothing would please him but to punt all day and every day, and a nice mess he made of it. Last year it was houseboating. We all had to go and stay with him in his houseboat and pretend we liked it. He was going to spend the rest of his life in a houseboat. It's all the same, whatever he takes up. He gets tired of it and starts on something fresh. Such a good fellow, too, remarked the otter reflectively. But no stability, especially in a boat. From where they sat, they could get a glimpse of the main stream across the island that separated them. And just then a wager boat flashed into view. The rower, a short, stout figure, splashing badly and rolling a good deal, but working his hardest. The rat stood up and hailed him, but Toad, for it was he, shook his head and settled sternly to his work. He'll be out of the boat in a minute if he rolls like that, said the rat, sitting down again. Of course he will, chuckled the otter. Did I ever tell you that good story about Toad and the lock keeper? It happened this way. Toad, an errant mayfly, swerved unsteadily athwart the current in the intoxicated fashion affected by young bloods of mayflies seeing life. A swirl of water and a cloop, and the mayfly was visible no more. Neither was the otter. The mole looked down. The voice was still in his ears, but the turf whereon he had sprawled was clearly vacant. Not an otter to be seen as far as the distant horizon. But again there was a streak of bubbles on the surface of the river. The rat hummed a tune, and the mole recollected that animal etiquette forbade any sort of comment on the sudden disappearance of one's friends at any moment, for any reason, or no reason whatever. Well, well, said the rat, I suppose we ought to be moving. I wonder which of us had better pack the luncheon basket. He did not speak as if he were frightfully eager for the treat. Oh, please let me, said the mole. So of course the rat let him. Packing the basket was not quite such pleasant work as unpacking the basket. It never is. But the mole was bent on enjoying everything, and although just when he had got the basket packed and strapped up tightly, he saw a plate staring up at him from the grass. And when the job had been done again, the rat pointed out a fork which anybody ought to have seen. And last of all, behold, the mustard pot, which he'd been sitting on without knowing it. Still, somehow, the thing got finished at last, without much loss of temper. The afternoon sun was getting low as the rat sculled gently homewards in a dreamy mood, murmuring poetry things over to himself, and not paying much attention to Mole. But the mole was very full of lunch and self-satisfaction and pride, and already quite at home in a boat, so he thought, and was getting a bit restless besides, and presently said, Riley, please, I want to row now. The rat shook his head with a smile. Not yet, my young friend, he said. Wait till you've had a few lessons. It's not so easy as it looks. The mole was quiet for a minute or two, but he began to feel more and more jealous of Rat, sculling so strongly and so easily along, and his pride began to whisper that he could do it every bit as well. He jumped up and seized the sculls so suddenly that the rat, who was gazing out over the water and saying more poetry things to himself, was taken by surprise and fell backwards off his seat with his legs in the air for the second time, while the triumphant mole took his place and grabbed the
Can you tell
skulls
I've drew
with
this
entire
before?
confidence.
Something like this anyway. All I used to have a
Cried
draw
the rat from the bottom of the boat.
cartoons.
You can't do it. You'll have
Right,
us
I
over.
need to find
The
something
mole
for a
flung his skulls
ruler.
back with a flourish and made a great dig at the water. He missed the surface altogether. His legs flew up above his head, and he found himself lying on top of the prostrate rat.
My ruler.
Greatly alarmed, he made a grab at the side of the boat, and the next moment, sploosh!
Sploosh!
Over went the boat, and he found himself struggling in the river. Oh my, how cold the water was, and oh, how very wet it felt. How it sang in his ears as he went down, down, down. How bright and welcome the sun looked as he rose to the surface, coughing and spluttering. How black was his despair when he felt himself sinking again. Then a firm paw gripped him by the back of his neck. It was the rat, and he was evidently laughing. The mole could feel him laughing right down his arm and through his paw and so into the mole's, neck. The rat got hold of a skull and shoved it under the mole's arm. Then he did the same by the other side of him and, swimming behind, propelled the helpless animal to shore, hauled him out, and set him down on the bank, a squashy, pulpy lump of misery. When the rat had rubbed him down a bit and wrung some of the wet out of him, he said,
Now then, old fellow, trot up and down the towing path as hard as you can till you're warm and dry again, while I dive for the luncheon basket.
So the dismal mole, wet without and ashamed within, trotted about till he was fairly dry, while the rat plunged into the water again, recovered the boat, righted her and made her fast, fetched his floating property to shore by degrees, and finally dived successfully for the luncheon basket and struggled to land with it. When all was ready for a start once more, the mole, limp and dejected, took his seat in the stern of the boat, and as they set off, he said in a low voice, broken with emotion, Ratty, my generous friend, I'm very sorry indeed for my foolish and ungrateful conduct.
Coffee.
My heart quite fails me when I think how I might have lost that beautiful luncheon basket. Indeed, I have been a complete ass, and I know it. Will you overlook it this once and forgive me, and let things go on as before?
That's all right, bless you,
Responded the rat cheerily.
What's a little wet to a water rat? I'm more in the water than out of it most days. Don't you think any more about it. And look here, I really think you had better come and stop with me for a little time. It's very plain and rough, you know. Not like Toad's house at all, but you haven't seen that yet. Still, I can make you comfortable, and I'll teach you to row and to swim, and you'll soon be as handy on the water as any of us.
The mole was so touched by his kind manner of speaking that he could find no voice to answer him, and he had to brush away a tear or two with the back of his paw. But the rat kindly looked in another direction, and presently the mole's spirits revived again, and he was even able to give some straight back talk to a couple of moorhens who were sniggering to each other about his bedraggled appearance. When they got home, the rat made a bright fire in the parlor and planted the mole in an armchair in front of it, having fetched down a dressing gown and slippers for him, and told him river stories till supper time. Very thrilling stories they were, too, to an earth-dwelling animal like mole. Stories about weirs and sudden floods and leaping pike and steamers that flung hard bottles, or at least bottles were certainly flung in from steamers, so presumably by them, and about herons, and how particular they were whom they spoke to, and about adventures down drains, and night fishings with otter, or excursions far afield with badger. Supper was a most cheerful meal, but very shortly afterwards, a terribly sleepy mole had to be escorted upstairs by his considerate host to the best bedroom, where he soon laid his head on his pillow in great peace and contentment, knowing that his new-found friend, the river, was lapping the sill of his window. This day was only the first of many similar ones for the emancipated mole, each of them longer and full of interest as the ripening summer moved onward. He learnt to swim and to row, and entered into the joy of running water, and with his ear to the reed stems he caught, at intervals, something of what the wind went whispering so constantly among them. End of chapter 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording is by Mark Smith of Simpsonville, South Carolina. The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. This is Chapter 2, The Open Road.
Ratty, said the mole suddenly one bright summer morning, if you please, I want to ask you a favor.
The rat was sitting on the river bank, singing a little song. He had just composed it himself, so he was very taken up with it, and would not pay proper attention to Mole or to anything else. Since early morning he had been swimming in the river, in company with his friends the ducks, and when the ducks stood on their heads suddenly, as ducks will, he would dive down and tickle their necks, just under where their chins would be if ducks had chins, till they were forced to come to the surface again in a hurry, spluttering and angry, and shaking their feathers at him, for it is impossible to say quite all you feel when your head is under water. At last they implored him to go away and attend to his own affairs and leave them to mind theirs. So the rat went away and sat on the river bank in the sun and made up a song about them, which he called Duck's Ditty.
All along the backwater, through the rushes tall, ducks are dabbling, up tails all. Ducks' tails, drakes' tails, yellow feet a quiver, yellow bills all out of sight, busy in the river. Slushy green undergrowth where the roach swim. Here we keep our larder, cool and full and dim. Everyone for what he likes, we like to be, heads down, tails up, dabbling free. High in the blue above, swift swirling call, we are down a dabbling, up tails all.
I don't know that I think so very much of that little song, Rat,
observed the mole cautiously. He was no poet himself, and didn't care who knew it, and he had a candid nature.
Nor don't the ducks neither,
replied the rat cheerfully.
They say, why can't fellows be allowed to do what they like when they like and as they like, instead of other fellows sitting on banks and watching them all the time and making remarks and poetry and things about them? What nonsense it all is. Well, that's what the ducks say.
So it is, said the mole with great heartiness.
No, it isn't,
cried the rat indignantly.
Well, then, it isn't,
replied the mole soothingly.
But what I wanted to ask you was, won't you take me to call on Mr. Toad? I've heard so much about him, and I do so want to make his acquaintance.
Why, certainly,
said the good-natured rat, jumping to his feet and dismissing poetry from his mind for the day.
Get the boat out, and we'll paddle up there at once. It's never the wrong time to call on Toad. Early or late, he's always the same fellow. Always good-tempered, always glad to see you, always sorry when you go.
He must be a very nice animal,
observed the mole, as he got into the boat and took the sculls, while the rat settled himself comfortably in the stern.
He is indeed the best of animals, replied Rat. So simple, so good-natured, and so affectionate. Perhaps he's not very clever. We can't all be geniuses. And it may be that he is both boastful and conceited. But he has got some great qualities, has Toady.
Rounding a bend in the river, they came in sight of a handsome, dignified old house of mellowed red brick, with well-kept lawns reaching down to the water's edge.
There's Toad Hall,
said the rat.
And that creek on the left, where the notice board says, Private, no landing allowed, leads to his boathouse. That's where we'll leave the boat. The stables are over there to the right. That's the banqueting hall you're looking at now.
Very old, that is. Toad is rather rich, you know, and this is really one of the nicest houses in these parts, though we never admit as much to Toad.
They glided up the creek, and the mole slipped his sculls as they passed into the shadow of a large boathouse. Here they saw many handsome boats, slung from the crossbeams or hauled up on a slip, but none in the water, and the place had an unused and deserted air. The rat looked around him.
I understand, said he. Boating is played out. He's tired of it and done with it. I wonder what new fad he's taken up now. Come along, let's look him up. We should hear all about it quite soon enough.
They disembarked and strolled across the gay flower-decked lawns in search of Toad, whom they presently happened upon resting in a wicker garden chair with a preoccupied expression of face and a large map spread out on his knees.
Hooray!
He cried, jumping up on seeing them. This is splendid! He shook the paws of both of them warmly, never waiting for an introduction to the mole.
How kind of you!
He went on, dancing around them.
I was just going to send a boat down to fetch you, Ratty, with strict orders you were to be fetched up here at once, whatever you were doing. I want you badly, both of you. Now what will you take? Come inside and have something. You don't know how lucky it is you're turning up just now.
Let's sit quiet a bit, Toady,
said the rat, throwing himself into an easy chair, while the mole took another by the side of him and made some civil remark about Toad's delightful residence.
Finest house on the river, cried Toad boisterously. Or anywhere else, for that matter,
he could not help adding. Here the rat nudged the mole. Unfortunately, the toad saw him do it and turned very red. There was a moment's painful silence. Then Toad burst out laughing.
All right, Ratty, he said. It's only my way, you know, and it's not such a very bad house, is it? You know you rather like it yourself. Now, look here. Let's be sensible. You're the very animals I wanted. You've got to help me. It's most important.
It's about your rowing, I suppose, said the rat with an innocent air. You're getting on fairly well, though you splash a good bit still. With a good deal of patience and any quantity of coaching, you may...
Oh, pooh, boating, interrupted the toad in great disgust. Silly boyish amusement. I've given that up long ago. Sheer waste of time, that's what it is. It makes me downright sorry to see you fellows, who ought to know better, spending all your energies in that aimless manner. No, no, I've discovered the real thing, the only genuine occupation for a lifetime. I propose to devote the remainder of mine to it, and can only regret the wasted years that lie behind me, squandered in trivialities. Come with me, dear Ratty, and your amiable friend also, if he will be so very good, just as far as the stable yard, and you shall see what you shall see. He led the way to the stable yard accordingly, the rat following with a most mistrustful expression. And there, drawn out of the coach house into the open, they saw a gypsy caravan, shining with newness, painted a canary yellow picked out with green, and red wheels. There you are,
cried the toad, straddling and expanding himself.
There's real life for you embodied in that little cart. The open road, the dusty highway, the heath, the common, the hedgerows, the rolling downs, camps, villages, towns, and cities, here today, up and off to somewhere else tomorrow. Travel, change, interest, excitement, the whole world before you, and a horizon that's always changing. And mind, this is the very finest cart of its sort that was ever built, without any exception. Come inside and look at the arrangements. Planned them all myself, I did.
The mole was tremendously interested and excited, and followed him eagerly up the steps and into the interior of the caravan. The rat only snorted and thrust his hands deep into his pockets, remaining where he was. It was indeed very compact and comfortable. Little sleeping bunks, a little table that folded up against the wall, a cooking stove, lockers, bookshelves, a bird cage with a bird in it, and pots, pans, jugs, and kettles of every size and variety. All complete, cried the toad triumphantly, pulling open a locker. You see, biscuits, potted lobster, sardines, everything you could possibly want. Soda water here, baccy there, letter paper, bacon, jam, cards and dominoes. You'll find, Hill continued as they descended the steps again, you'll find that nothing whatever has been forgotten when we make our start this afternoon.
I beg your pardon, said the rat slowly as he chewed a straw. But did I overhear you say something about we and start and this afternoon?
Now, you dear old ratty, said Toad imploringly, don't begin talking in that stiff and sniffy sort of way, because you know you've got to come. I can't possibly manage without you, so please consider it settled, and don't argue. It's the one thing I can't stand. You surely don't mean to stick to your old, dull, fusty river all your life, and just live in a hole in the bank and don't. I want to show you the world. I'm going to make an animal of you, my boy.
I don't care, said the rat doggedly. I'm not coming, and that's flat. And I am going to stick to my old river and live in a hole and boat, as I've always done. And what's more, Mole's going to stick to me and do as I do, aren't you, Mole?
Of course I am, said Mole loyally. I'll always stick to you, Rat. And what you say is to be, has got to be. All the same, it sounds as if it might have been, well, rather fun, you know, he added wistfully. Poor Mole, the life adventurous was so new a thing to him, and so thrilling, and this fresh aspect of it was so tempting, and he had fallen in love at first sight with the canary-colored cart and all its little fitments. The rat saw what was passing in his mind and wavered. He hated disappointing people, and he was fond of the mole, and would do almost anything to oblige him. Toad was watching both of them closely.
Come along and have some lunch, he said diplomatically. We'll talk it over. We needn't decide anything in a hurry. Of course, I don't really care. I only want to give pleasure to you fellows. Live for others, that's my motto in life.
During luncheon, which was excellent, of course, as everything at Toad Hall always was, the Toad simply let himself go. Disregarding the rat, he proceeded to play upon the inexperienced mole as on a harp. Naturally a voluble animal, and always mastered by his imagination, he painted the prospects of the trip and the joys of the open life and the roadside in such glowing colors that the mole could hardly sit in his chair for excitement. Somehow it soon seemed taken for granted by all three of them that the trip was a settled thing, and the rat, though still unconvinced in his mind, allowed his good nature to override his personal objections. He could not bear to disappoint his two friends, who were already deep in schemes and anticipations, planning out each day's separate occupation for several weeks ahead. When they were quite ready, the now triumphant Toad led his companions to the paddock and set them to capture the old gray horse, who, without having been consulted and to his own extreme annoyance, had been told off by Toad for the dustiest job in this dusty expedition. He frankly preferred the paddock and took a deal of catching. Meanwhile, Toad packed the lockers still tighter with necessaries, and hung nose bags, nets of onions, bundles of hay, and baskets from the bottom of the cart. At last the horse was caught and harnessed, and they set off, all talking at once, each animal either trudging by the side of the cart or sitting on the shaft as the humor took him. It was a golden afternoon. The smell of the dust they kicked up was rich and satisfying. Out of thick orchards on either side of the road, birds called and whistled to them cheerily. Good-natured wayfarers passing them give them good day or stop to say nice things about their beautiful cart.
Okay, guys,
And
I'm going to
sitting
have to
at the
end
front
this stream
doors in
here.
the hedgerows,
And say
held
thank
up
you very
their
much for
forepaws
watching.
and
Click the
said,
links that will
"Oh
appear,
my,
and I'll see
oh
you next
my,
time.
oh my." Late in the evening, tired and happy and miles from home, they drew up on a remote common far from habitations, turned the horse loose to graze, and ate their simple supper, sitting on the
Or
grass
maybe
by
not,
the
because
side
that
of the
phone call's
cart.
just cut itself off again. Oh,
Toad
so I
talked
will
big about
actually
all he
stop
was
here,
going to
guys.
do in the days to come.
I will actually stop here, guys, because I'm actually done. I've done today's picture. Hopefully you have enjoyed it, because I've got to find out what that call was. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed today's picture. Hopefully you've enjoyed the playlist in the background, and don't forget to leave a like if you have. I'm going to give you a quick zoom in and show you all the details that are actually here. So we've got the wily coyote who's trying to catch the road runner here. He's going beep beep, as he does, beep beep, running away with his little cloud dust behind him. And then we've got the wily coyote who's running his, oh sorry, not running, he's lighting his Acme & Co. firework so he can get and catch the Roadrunner, which he never does, as you found in the cartoons. Again, these are one of my favorite cartoons as a kid, and I've drew this many times. As you can see, I've got quite a little bit of detail in the background as well. But that is the end of today's stream, guys. So if you have liked it, don't forget to leave a like and check out tomorrow for the last and final day of October. Otherwise, guys, I've been Blut084, BLUT084 Art and Games. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow for some more last and final day.